Welcome to the 2000 Cubit Rule. It is your host, Mark Rowan. We're so glad that you're tuning in today. We're going to be having a great conversation with an amazing guest once again, but to help simplify your tech and amplify your message as you see this magnificent background purports. And what does that look like? A lot of business owners, Christian leaders are. We're here to step in the gap and what we offer through the so much. Give us a call, go to our website, whatever. Glad to have founder of Kingdomanalytics.
I am doing great. Forward to our conversation.
Kingdomanalytics, and we'll other titles. You also founded that's more too on your LinkedIn that you're Geographical Society or something like that. Is that about right?
Right there, and something super.
You're just really good at knowing geography.
So, for those who aren't familiar with the Royal, like the 1800s, that was the first time, or and doing all kinds of and a pretty neat, which I'm sure we'll get into. Also with geography, had a opening, some pretty groundbreaking stuff that relates to geography and what they're kind of looking for right now. What would happen if I just sent them an email and talked about my interest of potentially, I was thinking just to like come to a meeting or be a member. And then I guess somebody there saw some of the work we were doing and brought it up to the board, and they asked me to come on and to be a fellow with them. So I went out to London last, I guess it was November, and got the whole tour of their historic building, which is right off Kensington Park, and has been there for, I guess, hundreds of years now. Like the Shackleton's Journal and like all these things that I wasn't prepared for. I wish I was, because I would have had a list ready of or like the first page. Yeah. Neat group that piece of yeah.
Well, that's cool to get that little tidbit. Yeah, your journey gets started, and like I said, professional journey. How do those things?
I'm very much tell me 20. Yeah, right. Design theme park and stuff like that. along those footsteps, and so went to school. Um, at like worlds together, and eventually what that looks like. Southern California, that ex Disney Imagineering. So signed up with them. On that side, but started doing. There's still great with churches where they were $30 million building project. There, what was happening was who frankly wanted to build a lot of the, hey, what would you think? And kind of got the like okay, I knew this. Probably took a year. Something you need to do. I was probably a little resistant to that because I was the design guy, and some of that and like data, that's not fun. But eventually kind of that weight got heavier and heavier, and said, okay, I'll take the leap. And that's really where Kingdom Analytics came out of. So we have thousands of data points on every household in the U.S. I like to say the provocative way to explain it is we're kind of like the Christian Palantir, I guess, if you will. But the heart is, how do we use this data for good and to grow the kingdom? So what that looks like is when we're working with churches, it's how do we give them access to the same information, if not better, than what like Starbucks has when they're opening up a new Starbucks. They know exactly what's going to happen, where they need to be, and how much more important is that for a church when there's souls at stake to have something similar to that. So we can go into detail if you want how that works, but that's a little bit about where Kingdom Analytics kind of sprouted from, I guess.
That's good stuff to hear. And you mentioned North Point. I believe that's Andy Stanley's church. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. I had a good buddy that I went to college with that did some work for them as well. He's a video guy. So he would do music for them back when he used to live in the Atlanta area. So yeah, obviously a lot of stuff going on with North Point. So it's cool that you were a part of that journey as well. So like I said, data doesn't sound super exciting for most people, although we know it's very important. It makes me think of numbers in the Bible, right? I've been reading through the Torah this year, and so you get into those like chapters in the Bible that it's like essentially just data, and sometimes you're questioning why should I be reading this? And so businesses and churches can think the same thing. Like, tell us about the importance of knowing certain types of data, and of course, we can touch on this too about the whole privacy issue that so many people are worried about. But yeah, let's go with the importance first.
Yeah, I mean, I like to equate it to if you look back at the tribe of Issachar, there's several verses that talk about the leaders of tribe understanding the signs of the time and knowing the best course of action for Israel to take, and that's what we're kind of really focused on here. Of okay, what are the signs of the time in our community today? And based on that, what's the best course of action for us as a church, as a Christian business, nonprofit ministry to take there? So it's really kind of highlighting, okay, what's the information we need to make wise decisions? So there's a key important piece, and that's not to replace discernment or prayer or anything like that, obviously, but it's helpful to know, okay, where's God moving in our community? What's He up to? The information's there. We can't just stick our head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. And then based on that, how can we be faithful and good stewards of the information that we now have? What does that demand from us once we know that? So there's a lot around some of that. On the data privacy side, obviously that's a huge thing, especially now with AI and everything there too. We take that very seriously on our end, and especially so like when we're working with these organizations, you're getting back thousands of data points on these different households. There's obviously ways where organizations could use that not for good. Like this would be fantastic information if you were a casino or something like that to better understand who your top spenders were or something. But that's not the direction we're going to go with some of this. And there's lots of interesting kind of tidbits that come out with this, but I think an important part is what's the heart behind some of this. So when we get some of that information, it's looking through it of the lens of, okay, we now know there's a ministry need in our community for addiction support groups or loneliness or some things like that. We're not going to use that to manipulate folks, but how can we maybe stand up a ministry that supports families who are struggling with substance abuse or some of those things, especially when these are often issues that people are not open about or coming to actively seek help from their pastors. A lot of this is, hey, I'm going to leave home. What happens at home stays at home. I'm going to put my church face on. And the best I might hear as a pastor from families like that is like, hey, I heard we're doing Celebrate Recovery. I'd really like to help serve as a volunteer or something like that. Not that I need it for myself, but what we want to equip those leadership teams with is, hey, here's the reality of what's happening in our communities. How can we go be a light and so serve those communities well?
Beautiful. Now that's a good perspective on this and all the information that's available to us. Made me think a little bit about, when Abraham's father-in-law came in, or was it Abraham or Moses? I always get it confused. Is it Moses?
I think it's Moses.
It's Moses, yeah, because he was kind of the people out there. Jethro, he comes in, he's like,
After he
there's
left,
way too much, way too much information essentially is coming to you. You can't handle it all. So let's set up a system in which we can handle it. And of course, they didn't have computers, so they use people. And obviously, we're not going to replace people, even though that's a fear, right? The AI is taking everybody's jobs.
Right.
And there's a lot of debate going back and forth in the faith space on AI. I know you, as a keynote speaker, often address AI and how churches, ministries can handle it, the good, the bad, and all that kind of stuff. You already touched a little bit on the AI, but where should we be landing on this AI functionality within the Christian space?
Well, I think a key part you addressed there immediately is some of the fear around job loss. And I think the church really needs to start preparing, if we haven't already, for the crisis of purpose that is going to essentially be coming down the pipeline here soon. We've done studies on this, and many other folks have as well. A large amount of Americans directly associate their purpose in life with their career. And when it becomes inevitable, or that our career can be done by a computer 10 times better than us, and maybe we don't have a job, or that job is different than what we've done for the last 20 years, there's going to be a large crisis of purpose. And I think the church is uniquely positioned to show folks what their true purpose really is. And you're seeing ripple effects of this already. I mean, we can go back. This isn't a new thing. I mean, if you go back to the founding of our country 250 years ago now, 70 to 90% of Americans were working in agriculture. That's not true today. I mean, and the reality was, like, you could get up at sunrise and work all the way to sunset all day long, and you could harvest about, and you'll get this from the farming perspective, about 10 bushels of corn. Today, one farmer on a tractor can harvest 10,000 bushels of corn in probably half that time. So my encouragement to a lot of folks when there's fear about some of these things is kind of two things. One, okay, how do we become the one farmer on the tractor who's doing some of this role, the role of 1,000 farmers back in the day? But also, two, there may be some roles that just like, I mean, I'm sure there's probably plenty of toll booth operators who really love their job and that's their thing. But we're probably made for more than just taking coins from folks in a car. And there's going to be roles that maybe that should never be replaced or anything there. But the reality is, AI, yes, scary. There's going to be displacement and things there. But in the long run, is going to free us up to do more of what we were created for. And I mean, this hit me pretty hard. I was in New York a few weeks ago and was in my hotel looking across the street at an office building where one of those where there's like 30 floors and every single floor looks identical and there's hundreds of people on each of those floors. And it was 7 p.m. and everyone's still working. And I'm just looking across the street and thinking about, okay, the person on that third floor there, like, they're missing family dinner right now. How many kids' soccer games are we not going to? And they're devoting their life to this one little thing just so they could move up a floor or two and basically do the same thing that in 5 years, frankly, may or may not even exist as a career. So it's almost this weird, like, nostalgia for the present in some ways of like, it looks like you're looking back in time of like, why are we doing these things and where are our priorities actually? And I think there's going to be a lot of shifts for that. And the church better be ready to have some answers when people come looking for purpose. And I think that's it's going to be interesting. You can see God kind of working through some of this as well too, which is cool.
I heard someone say that actually our purpose is to worship God, and then we have assignments and calls that change, right? We don't always have the same assignment, right? You were assigned to help the theme park for a while, that company, and now you have this other assignment. But it also, this conversation makes me, it's like a famous kind of quote or anecdote about, when Henry Ford showed up on the scene, the guy who made the horsewhip probably was thinking the same way that a lot of people think about AI, right? Like, here goes my job. So this has happened throughout history, just like you said with the farmers. Nothing new. The speed of which this replacement's happening is what has gone up exponentially, and AI is obviously driving that as well.
That's the key point there, and it's a misconception a lot of folks have, is that historically this has happened many times. And what the mistake we're making with AI right now is we are assuming this is the same thing as the farmer with the tractor and some of that. What's different is those were all linear advancing technologies. Like there's a lot of people equating AI to the internet, and you get this. But like the reality is if you woke up from a coma 30 years later today, we could get you caught up to speed with what the internet is. And you just said it there, like AI is advancing exponentially. The problem, and it's going to be very apparent very quickly here, is we're still on the bottom part of that hockey stick curve where it looks like it's linear advancements. But you're starting to see now, maybe folks listening to this over the last couple of weeks, there's been some pretty major milestones that are happening very quickly, and those are going to just compound on top of each other. And eventually, like frankly, if we're not having these conversations, it's going to be too late. So I talk a lot of conferences and to churches and different groups, like this is our time to impact the direction of where this is going. This is not one we want to be sitting on our hands and then looking back 10 years from now and being upset on where the world took this. Like it's our responsibility now to have the redemptive piece of this baked in from the beginning.
Right. And for those of you that may have not been paying close attention before we move on from our AI conversation, those milestones you just referenced, what are those for people that are not locked in on the message? And how is a kingdom perspective on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've seen many of these changes happen. I mean, the first big one that most everyone has seen is like the Chat GPT moment in 2022 when that first became kind of mainstream. Mm-hmm. I think more recently, what Anthropic has done through Claude Cowork, that has activated a lot more opportunities to essentially do work for you and spinning up agents that can do some of this work. That the reality is, like, if all AI advancement ceased today and stopped and we just held everything, we'd still have 15 to 20 years worth of catching up just with the technology that exists today. And the reality is it's not stopping tomorrow. It's still going to keep going. Yeah. I mean, an interesting one that I had seen that just really showed me where things are at, and is kind of a scary one, but interesting in a redemptive way in some ways, and how it was used. I'm not sure if you saw the news of the downed airman in Iran and how they found him. Right. But for the audience who doesn't know how that kind of worked, was essentially we used AI and sensors from 40 miles away to detect his heartbeat in a valley or a cave in Iran. So like there's some scary and some redemptiveness to some of that, as well as like, okay, if that's what we have now, what else do we have? And they share, and if that's what we're sharing publicly, like how is AI being used? And then also, okay, there's obviously some scary ways that can be. You don't have to think too hard about of how that technology can be used, but what are the redemptive ways that some of this? So I think always looking through that lens, and especially as a church, also thinking like this is not like a situation we want to be a Luddite in, but we also don't want to just blindly accept everything. And with your elder boards, your leadership team, whoever it is, thinking through kind of I like to think of it kind of like green light, yellow light, red light uses of AI in our church. Like, what is something that we know is loving, uplifting, redemptive, that is for sure a green light use of this technology? What are those use cases where there needs to be a little caution, some discernment there, those yellow? And then what's the red? What are we going to reject? What are we is never going to be a use? And I think having a clear framework for both our teams and our communities of kind of setting where that is can put some good guardrails on the use of this technology there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We could talk about this the whole time, no problem. Just like as AI is proliferating, we
Yeah.
could proliferate this conversation. One last thought. The farm work is a CRM and AI is built in throughout it as well. And, it's been available for some time in order to, build out things and I haven't personally used it a lot. But started to, hey,
Yeah.
build out this workflow, and it helps, right? It's less man time and all that. But when you talked about the green light, yellow light, red light, there was another provider that was servicing churches with a similar type of platform. And I would say this is a red light type of function, is that they were selling the ability to do automated prayers with
Yeah.
AI. Like, you have a prayer request and AI spins up a prayer and sends it to you.
Mhm.
And like, even though it might sound great, an AI, because the AI can just go out and find out like what's a good prayer. So I'm like,
Right.
but the problem is that's a box. That's not a human spirit connecting with the Holy Spirit in order to see a prayer go forth. So
Right. Yeah. I'm sure it could write a very great and compelling sermon, but you're right. It does not have the Holy Spirit, which is a pretty key
yeah,
piece to that there.
yeah, yeah. So I know we spent a good bit of time talking about the AI. We touched on your data and your analytics. So people, obviously, you want to learn more about that, go to kingdomanalytics.com, correct? And
Yes.
gauge you there for those services and the capabilities that they provide the church and beyond. Um, we talked a little bit before we jumped on live here with the recording about a passion project and things that maybe not a project, but your own passion for
Yeah.
generosity and what that looks like in the body of Christ and for entrepreneurs in particular. Let's kind of unpack that. Tell us that passion that you have regarding generosity.
Yeah, so this is kind of separate from anything Kingdom Analytics related, but it's still Kingdom related. And any chance I get to talk with faith-driven or Christian entrepreneurs and leaders, I always like to kind of get on my soapbox a little bit for a second, but kind of share some this is not tax advice, disclaimer, but some interesting tools and strategies when it comes to our generosity. And it's been a key passion of mine. I mean, everything God's given us is ours to steward, and we want to steward that well. And especially when we're giving, there's good and bad ways to even look at how we're giving. And a big piece I'd encourage folks to do a little more research on, or at least start exploring if you're not familiar with already, is giving through a donor advised fund. And I don't have any associations with any of these organizations or anything like that, but there's plenty of them out there. But for those who are not familiar with what a donor advised fund is, essentially what this allows you to do is to give your gifts to your church, to ministries, whoever, tax free. And take a tax deduction. So kind of double tax advantage here. What 90% of the folks I talk to, when they're giving their tithe or they're giving, it's out of cash, and what's important is this is happening. And I'm trying to explain something technical and make it easy here. So give me
Appreciate
some
that.
grace as I go through this. But what's happening is when we give and we write our check or whatever that is, almost always by default, that's after taxes. It's out of our income. We've already paid taxes on that. We made $100. We got 75, and then we're giving 10 of that away or whatever that is. But we've already paid taxes there. What's different with a donor advised fund is you can look at this almost like your own little mini nonprofit in some ways, where instead of, okay, paying tax and then giving it to your church, what you can do before that is, let's say you have some investments. Maybe you bought Apple stock and you've got $10,000 worth of gain in Apple stock or whatever that is. You could instead contribute that $100 to your donor advised fund tax free. And you're not cashing out that stock, because if you cash it out, guess what? Capital gains tax time, Uncle Sam comes knocking and wants its piece.
Mhm.
But your donor advised fund is essentially a nonprofit. Nonprofit's not going to pay tax. You can contribute that to your donor advised fund. It gets the full $100 instead of the $7 or whatever it was, or 70 before. And then from there, you have two unique opportunities. It sits in a box, and you can have that invested so that continues to grow tax free, and you can decide later where to allocate that. Or you can immediately say, okay, this now goes to my ABC church down the street, or to this ministry that I want to support, and they get the full gift versus the tax deducted one. So all that to say, an easy way to give 25% more for all Christians than what we were doing before, and never having to pay capital gains tax again on any of your investments. Just what we'll do is we'll contribute, instead of giving out of cash, we'll give out of our appreciated assets in our brokerage, and haven't had to pay capital gains tax in a long time because we're giving from there. For entrepreneurs as well, I know there's lots of ups and downs, and there's some years where you maybe have a really good year.
Mhm.
You could think about giving maybe 2 or 3 years worth in that one year to lower your taxes, and take a deduction for that year, and then distributing that from your donor advised fund over a longer period of time. And while it's sitting there, it's also growing in the investments you have it in as well. So without going super far down like the technical route, just take a look. There's probably some YouTube videos that explain it 20 times better than what I just did there, but that'll be my little nugget is look at donor advised funds for your giving.
Yeah.
There. But yeah.
Do you have like some folks that you would recommend that, do that type of thing? You said,
Yeah.
yeah.
National Christian Foundation has some great options. Blue Trust, which used to be Ronald Blue, and we just use Schwab for ours, just because that's where a lot of our investments are. It's easy just to kind of bring that over.
Okay.
There is probably not going to be the long-term option for us, just because right now it's not an issue, but technically in the future, they could limit what organizations they consider to be okay to give to. I mean, it's open to everyone right now. I don't foresee that changing immediately, but I could see down the line, you'd probably want to be with an organization that's more aligned with your beliefs and faith, that isn't going to cut you off with something there. So those are few to check out, and almost all should be free or no fee or anything like that there. So it's a cool vehicle, I guess, to do your giving through.
Yeah, that's some great information. It's free from Andrew. You didn't have to charge any extra for that amazing insight on how to be generous and wise in doing it. So thanks for cluing the folks in with that those that didn't already know about it. So we're smarter than we were a few minutes ago. Thank you very much. So for Kingdom Analytics, moving forward, we've talked a little bit about it, but just for you and for the business, what are you looking into the second half? So we're halfway through the 2020s or more than. And as we continue to move forward and all that's going on, and like we've touched on AI and data and all that, what are some things that you're seeing that you guys are going to be involved in, or just in the industry itself, that are important for us to be aware of?
Yeah, there's a couple things I can touch on here, both from like where we're focusing, but also some trends that we're seeing nationally. So we're going to continue to focus when it comes to AI and how that develops. I mean, over the last couple years, one of the things that we've done for a lot of our business clients, school clients, churches is create these custom AIs that model their communities. And I'll explain this in a little bit here. In the U.S., there's these 71 different, they're called mosaics, that every household falls into. You can think of these like personas, target markets. It's something developed a little bit behind closed doors by the credit agencies, but essentially what they've done is grouped every household into one of these 71 different groups. And this is used all day long if you're in the corporate world. Like if you're Coca-Cola and you got your new Celsius flavor, you better bet they know who their target market. Yeah, cheers. Who their target market, who their target mosaic is. So there's a lot of really great marketing and communication data associated with these different groups. And what we've done is taken all the other data we have and overlaid that on top of these different mosaics to really understand, okay, what is someone in this mosaic in our community looking for in a church? What are the ministry needs they might have? What do they think about Jesus? Or from the business standpoint, who are the top 3 mosaics as our customer base? How do we go find more of them? How do we communicate with them? What are they looking for? What products would they want? And how do we serve them well? And there's thousands of data points, hundreds of pages of information on each of these different groups that we've kind of put together. And you can pull out some actionable bullets from that to kind of present, but you're scratching the surface. So what we've done is create an AI that's trained to kind of have the mind of each of these different mosaics, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then we give it the context of your organization or ministry, whatever it is. And it allows for this like interesting, like 24/7 focus group, but the person you're talking to is kind of on truth serum in some ways, where you can say like, what do you hate most about our kids check-in process? Or, hey, we're thinking about releasing this new product offering. What do you think, really? And it goes back through all the behavioral data that we have on these households and can help give some really helpful answers. So we're going to continue to develop that, but again, through the lens of those like green light, yellow light, red light uses of AI. Like, I'm sure it would give you an answer if you said like, hey, what can we pray for you? But maybe that's not the direction we want to be using that for. Right. A yellow light use that I will say our church is kind of exploring with a little bit here is taking a transcript of our sermon every Sunday and putting it through the lens of one of these mosaics we're really trying to reach and connect with in our community and saying, what did you hear? And what were we trying to communicate? And were those two different things? And how can we better understand where you are in your life stage and connect with you there? We're not using this to like do Bible verses or anything like that there, but really trying to better understand some of that. I've heard from churches who've used it to change the smell of their worship center, to all these kinds of fun things that you can explore with it. I mean, very much so on the business side too, understanding who our customers are, how to better connect and communicate with them. So looking forward through the second half of this decade, I think that's going to become a bigger piece of what we do beyond just the like, hey, here's the really helpful report that tells you about who your customers are and how to communicate with them and things like that, to really make it interactive and expand on that there. As far as like some trends that we're seeing just nationally that are interesting, I guess, or maybe a little concerning, is when we do these studies, we've looked at hundreds of communities across the country. And I'll tell you a trend that we have seen over the last couple of years is around time. And what a lot of us as Americans don't realize is we all have the second job that we really don't know that we have. And that's that the average American outside of work is spending 40 hours a week on screens of some kind, whether that is phones, TV, computer, and we're essentially being distracted as a nation. And we see this come up in almost every community we look at nationally. When we look at life concerns and what people are stressed about and things like that, it really all boils down to time. And you'll see things come up like time for friends and family, balancing work and family. And it's no question we have some of these stressors when we were less productive. We feel like we didn't have time because, I mean, almost our screw tape letters in some ways. We're kind of be distracted as a nation. So thinking about how do we reduce screen time or redeem screen time are some things we're going to be looking at and encouraging over the next couple of years, because I don't see that going down, especially with AI. It's estimated by the end of this decade, 80% of the content you engage with, and it may even happen before that by the look of things so far, is going to be AI generated. And what does that do to us in our hearts, or even as a nation, when we're all living in our own little bubble? I mean, we've seen this already with like social media and the algorithm that's just reinforcing maybe our own viewpoints. But when content is going to be personalized and created just for us, there's not a lot of external community and relation that can kind of happen with that. We're just going to be kind of living in our bubbles there. So I think there needs to be some guardrails there, and some awareness around the implications of that as well too.
Yeah, I've joked before that outside of setting off an EMP that erases all of our technology, there's got to be a better way to not succumb to all this tech time. And we're all guilty on some level. I mean, if you have it in your pocket all the time, as a lot of people, even in underdeveloped countries, they still have this technology. That's, I think, centered around, you hear about the next great move of God, and I think we're in it because of some of you probably have more data to back that up than the rest of us would, like what's happened in the last 5 to 6 years with the gospel and things of that nature.
Oh yeah.
But the thing that I wanted to bring to the table was it's this AI being personalized to like take our time away is essentially a replacement for our relationship with Jesus. Like, who's going to be more personalized and know us better than the Holy Spirit and Jesus, who created us? And so this is the replacement, right? That's the enemy's plan. Like, here, why don't you stare at this screen who looks like it knows everything about you,
Right.
based on your behaviors, but we're not really defined by our behaviors. That's the key thing.
Right. Yeah. It's almost the Tower of Babel story again, and in some ways, but I mean, but there's so much good and potential that can come from this technology as well. I mean, I just got back from missional AI. I'm not sure if you were there as well too, but for any folks who are really interested in the AI piece, from faith-based perspective, you got to next year get your tickets to missional AI, because it's people from all over the world are coming together and sharing, hey, here's all the redemptive uses of how this is being applied, from like the Chosen just teamed up with you version, to, as you're watching the Chosen on the Chosen, I think this is live now, is you are going to now have verses that link you into the YouVersion Bible app that go with each of those. And they've used AI also in collaboration with Bible translators to, I think it is the Guinness Book of World Records most translated TV show now into hundreds of different languages. So the access that that has allowed is pretty amazing. And then, I mean, being wise with our use as well. I co-lead a group called Faith Tech here in Phoenix, and James Kelly, who leads the overall group, nationally spoke at Missional AI with the message of like, pray before you prompt. And that was an interesting piece, like, because there's so many times where I think I have started going to ChatGPT first before I prayed, of like, is this an answer that I need from AI, or is this actually an answer that I need to be praying about here? So there's some good habits, I think, to get in there of where are we seeking our truth from? Where is that coming from?
100%. We definitely should be praying at all, and that's the one of the core values here at Sheep Feast. The 2,000 Cubit Rule literally is about making room for God to move. So, make room for God in the midst of your AI prompts, or even before, or after. Like maybe you did it already, and it's like, hey, Lord, should I actually pay attention to this or not? Uh, so that's definitely a great thing to think about. As we're wrapping up our time here, Andrew, we want to make sure people once again go check out. He's on LinkedIn, and so you can find him there. You can find kingdomanalytics.com. Get involved with him and what he's doing. If you're looking for information and data that can really help you move forward in your organization, so definitely check that out. Andrew, I always like to give our guest the final word of encouragement to our folks that are tuning in, and what would you have to share with as a parting word?
Yeah, I would say we're in a very exciting time right now, and I'd encourage you all not to look at it through the lens of fear, but through the lens of opportunity and what this is going to allow for the kingdom, both in the church and your business, and how can we be utilizing the tools and what God has given us for His glory. And like you said, we're happy to help with the process. We're not technically a nonprofit, but we're kind of structured like one. So we want to help serve any organization that's doing good in the world. So if you want a better look at who your community is, who your customers are, how to connect with them, we're in your corner. We want to help support the work you're doing. And again, my secret end goal here with a lot of this is around generosity for the church. Is there's only so much my wife and I are going to be able to give in our lifetime, but if I can encourage and enable many Christians across the world to do that strategically and to have capacity to do that, that's what I'm all about.
Amen to that, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time, for your insight into this world that you're a part of. And we just appreciate you sharing with us today and being on the 2,000 Cubit Rule.
Thanks for having me, Mark, and big fans of what you're doing as well.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Until next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the next 2,000 Cubit Rule.